Welcome to This Week in Erie, and while many students in the area are already back in school, school starts after Labor Day for the Erie School District this year. And once again, the United Way of Erie County is spearheading the community schools model. It's a program that is making a big impact in the community, and joining us now to talk about the program is Mike Jaruszewicz, the Vice President of Community Impact at the United Way. Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We know a busy time for you all with this community schools model. Tell us a little bit about the model and what it means.
Sure. So the community school model is an evidence-based approach that uses data to identify what are the barriers that prevent students from being academically successful. And it actually takes a little bit further to also identify what are the barriers that are preventing those families in those school catchment areas from being successful. We then use those data and then through collective impact work to align programs and partnerships to remove them. So those things that were preventing students from attending school regularly or being able to pay attention or being physically able to learn are removed, and it levels that playing field for some of the folks that are struggling in our community.
So how does someone utilize the services if their school does have a community school program?
So this isn't sort of a one-size-fits-all approach. Because we're using data that we collect through the school, focus groups and surveys with students, with parents, with teachers, some of the resources in a community school are just specific to maybe 10 or 15 kids or families, or others are school-wide supports. And so really what makes this work is the fact we have a community school director working full-time in that school. Community school directors, we see them as co-pilots to the principals, where before educators were just bombarded with all of these needs and trying to teach while also be social workers and be doctors and being all of these other things. Where now we have a director who's not providing direct services, they're that connector. So once we have those needs assessments done, or what we call them action plans, with very specific strategies, those directors are charged with bringing those partners in, helping work with the school teams to identify which students could benefit with specific programs, and then connecting them to those resources.
What is the response from, say, the principals or the teachers? I would imagine they're so grateful now that they have somewhere to turn.
Yeah, they are grateful. When we've had some candid conversations with folks, they've shared that they've felt overwhelmed. It's like an uphill battle.
Right, because they want to help.
They want to help, and they went to school to be teachers. They didn't, again, go to school to be those social workers, to be all those other things that these families need. And so, the fact that our community has really rallied around our education system to say, hey, we know that you can't do this alone, and we're here to help, has really gone a long way with those educators. And in other communities we've seen, and I'm sure we'll get that data here soon, that morale within just the teaching profession increases because they're able to do what they love to do.
And it's something, though, that it's happening in more places in Erie. We were talking a little bit before about the wide impact of this model and how you all found out about it.
Yeah, so United Way was drawn to this model because we needed a better way to support the community. We were revisiting our impact strategy and recognized that while we're on a mission to crush poverty, our strategy wasn't doing what we needed it to do. And so when we started looking at collective impact approaches throughout the country, all paths really led to this community schools model. So there's over 7,000 different schools across the United States that have been doing this. Some communities have been implementing the model for over 20 years. And so we were able to, one, look at their approaches, look at their successes, look at their challenges, and integrate that into how we rolled this out here in our community.
And this year, adding 2 more schools, I believe. Tell us a little bit about the schools, how you choose them, and what the hope is down the road.
Right. So we start certainly with need. So we're looking at a range of educational statistics that's available through the Department of Education, just to justify that there's an academic need, because at the end of the day, our focus is student success. But it's really important that the school districts understand and support this way of working, because it's very different. It's a shared leadership approach where we're working in partnership with principals where it's a team decision-making process. So you have to have full support from the educators, but then also from the teachers. It's a different way of working for them too. We're opening schools up to community partners to come in. And so we really, look at the need of the students, but then make sure that there's buy-in from those schools and those districts. Then, of course, funding. We need to generate sponsorships for each of these schools to help offset the cost for coordinating those services.
Well, and when you look at the sponsorships and some of the businesses that have stepped forward, a pretty impressive list. How are they feeling about their investment in this?
Well, we've renewed a number of those sponsorships already and are continuing to increase the number of corporate partners that are involved. In our conversations with them, they get this, right? Because what we're doing is we're creating a pipeline of educated folks that will be entering the workforce. We see all this investment happening in our community, the potential for all these great jobs. We need a local, homegrown, educated workforce, and by strengthening our education system, we're contributing to that. So in many ways, they're not just investing into the schools of their community, they're investing into their own economic future.
Right, because when you look at any of the many studies that have been done in Erie and how to help the economy, it always goes back to education. And this is where you're getting in on the ground floor with these younger kids, because it's mostly elementary schools, correct?
Yeah, whenever we start a community school partnership, we'll start at the elementary school level and then over time scale up through the district. And the strategy there is you want to start with the youngest students and then continue that support so they experience the community school model, they and their families, throughout their entire education. And so we've started with elementary schools. We've expanded to 2 middle schools in Erie's public schools, but that's our approach.
Do you have people asking for you to bring community directors to their schools?
We do, yeah. I mean, there's, I think when folks start to understand what this is and what it isn't, but importantly, how
probably word of mouth too. I'm sure other schools, they talk.
Yeah, and we're hearing. I mean, there's really positive feedback from the principals and from a lot of the teachers. And so, but we're very cognizant of how to expand, how quickly to expand again. There's dollars that need to be raised to do this. United Way plays a very important role in this model, not just in terms of generating the sponsorships or the funding, but by serving as we call it as a backbone organization for all of this. In other communities where where they've launched the community school model, if there was an organization that was managing the partnerships, collecting the data, conducting the evaluations, navigating complex partnerships or discussions, the work failed. And so much of our role in all of this is providing that technical assistance and capacity building. And so, we're limited also in how many schools we can service at any given time. So all of those factors are playing into the expansion, but it is ultimately one of our goals to expand this throughout the community.
Let's talk about too how if someone is watching this and they're at one of the schools that offers this, is there a way to find out more information? Is it something that they have to wait to be contacted by a person in the school, or is it something they can seek out?
Yeah, so community schools are hubs in their neighborhoods, and so they're there to serve not just the students in the school and their families, but in time and in many cases the broader community. And so information on the local community schools can be found on our website, unitedwayerie.org/community schools. Each of those school communities for the most part, have strong social media presences. And so what we found is that's a great way for parents and families to stay informed in terms of what's being offered or what's available at their community schools, and then word of mouth too. So there's different avenues for folks to get information about what's happening at the community school in their neighborhood.
Well, and of course, school starts after Labor Day in the Erie School District, so things will amp up. But you all are busy too around the entire year because, of course, Imagination Library, that has just gone, I'm sure, beyond your expectations as well.
Yeah, when we when we shifted our focus and put a real stake in the ground saying that we were going to crush poverty, we looked at a two-generation approach. And so to break that cycle of poverty, you have to focus on education from birth, but then also family stability. And so when we talk about education with the community schools, there's a lot of work happening at elementary level, middle school, and soon to be high school level. But when, education from birth, that's where Imagination Library comes in. It's a free, high-quality literacy program that's available to every child, birth to age 5 in our community, where we will mail a book to that child's home every month for those 5 years. And so at by the time they graduate from the Imagination Library, they're going to have a library of their own of 60 books. And these are all high quality. We have local research that demonstrates the effectiveness of just having these books in the home. So it's really a terrific way for folks to get behind our literacy efforts and to support our community.
And I'm sure too, with this transition over the years with the role the United Way of Erie County is playing, it must be so satisfying for all of you who've been there over these past few years to see really a lot of this come to fruition and to start seeing people who, like you said, a graduate or someone who's benefited from any of these programs for a couple of years.
Yeah, we've always been about accountability, data, and transparency, and that's one of the reasons why we've made some tough decisions and adjusted our impact strategy, because we want to see that impact in our community, and we are seeing it through efforts like Imagination Library and community schools.
Mike, thank you so much for coming. I know it's a busy week for you, and we look forward to seeing how this goes and where the program heads next, this community schools model. So,
hey, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much, and thank you for joining us on This Week in Erie.